I've lived in Ealing most of my life within a quarter of a mile of here. I'm known by lots of people simply as the Polish Prince. This is a house that I dreamed of building for half a century. It's a Polish island in an English sea. I built it to keep a promise I made to my grandmother, who had a palace in Poland before the war, which the Germans kicked her out of when they invaded, and then the communists nationalized it and burnt it to the ground. And I promised her I'd rebuild it, and I thought I'd do it in Poland, but instead I've done it over here. 3/4 of my family died in German death camps. My grandmother survived her stay in Ravensbrück, but she lost she lost all her family apart from her daughter. I still feel it inside me, even though I was born 6 years after the war ended. There's something called second generation and even third generation Holocaust trauma. For the first 25 years of my life, I was incredibly insecure. That's the trauma that was passed to me, the horror of the war. It's still very real for all Polish people. 80% of Warsaw, the capital city, was destroyed. 80% of the inhabitants of the capital city were murdered. There were times that the Germans would not use bullets because they didn't have enough bullets. That's why the gas chambers were invented. 6 million Polish citizens died. I used to pop into her house on the way back from school, and every day she talked about Gozdowo, this palace in Poland that she used to have, and the life, and her son who died in a camp, and her husband, and so on. And I was so caught up on it, it became like my dream. It was like this Atlantis that had disappeared under the sea, gone forever. I really felt for her. I found this site in 2002, nearly 30 years after she died, and it's only when the postman came down the drive one day, and suddenly it loomed up in front of him. He said, "God blimey, it's an effing palace!" I had 0 photos. All I had was my grandmother's description, that it was painted white, it had columns, and then I got to know the style of historic Polish houses by visiting the stately homes. And I'd borrowed this idea from Buckingham Palace, this idea from Blenheim Palace, this from Versailles, and do my own version of her palace. Any style of architecture is a language unto itself. And you just have to learn it, just like learning French or Spanish or any other language. This ballroom is a replica of the Royal Ballroom in the Royal Summer Palace in Warsaw. It has the same number of windows, the same proportions, 2 fireplaces, but it is 42% smaller. Time Out magazine said that it's one of the top 6 buildings in London, along with Buckingham Palace and the Shard. I've been a businessman for 40 years. One thing is very clear to me: business has got nothing to do with money. It's all about courage and imagination. First comes what's in your heart. I loved her so much. I wanted to do this for her. And here it is. And she is here today when I'm talking to you. And she's delighted that you've come here and that you're taking an interest in what, after all, is the fruit of her heart. Without her, this place wouldn't exist.